Okay. All praise, glory, and honor is most certainly due to the Most High, God of the patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And peace to you, brothers and sisters. In the name of Jesus. This is your brother Elisha Israel of the household of faith. And I count it truly a blessing each and every time that I can come before you to preach the word of God, and never do I count it as a light thing to do so. Just a little bit about the household of faith. We meet every Sabbath at 5925 West 25th Avenue, Gary. 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. We invite you to come out and worship with us where you can hear the uncut, unadulterated word of God. All right, brothers and sisters, I want to get right into today's lesson because I'm running a little late. My apologies to you. And the title, or what I really want to deal with, is what we should consider before thinking about or dealing with these school shootings. Now, let me qualify this. Let me say from the onset, one school shooting is one too many, okay? It's a tragedy anytime a life is taken, especially when you consider what our potential is, or the potential that we have as the creation of God. So it's a terrible thing, especially children being killed. So let me say that at the onset. Let me also just deal with something that we need to consider in dealing with this issue. And if you see this backwards, I don't know why you see this backwards. My apologies to you, so I'm gonna just be reading it to you. So what we should know about schools in public schools in America, in the fall of 2017, there were approximately 50.7 million students enrolled in public schools. That's K through 12. Okay? So let's just get that out there. All right? So that's a lot of students. Now, when you look at the news continually, what you see is people being thrown into hysteria. You have thousands and thousands of students showing their disdain for what has happened, because it is a terrible tragedy anytime a life is taken. But what we should realize about these school shootings, and this is not going to be popular, but the reality is that when you look at the situation, quite frankly, as bad as it is, let's just look at this number. Over the past quarter century, on average, it says how many, I left a blank there, students are killed in school shootings. So how many students are killed in school shootings over the past century on average? What do you think? Take a moment to think about this. Again, the question is, over the past quarter century, on average, how many students are killed in school shootings? This is annually, okay? Annually, every year. How many students die in school shootings? On average, it's 10. 10 too many, but 10 nonetheless. Why am I pointing this out? Because this is, as bad as it is not the norm. You have 50.7 million students. Again, one is too many. But it is not as if students are going to school and just getting shot and killed. That's because you keep seeing things over and over and over again in the media, and you would think them to be true. But when you look at the statistics, in actuality, it's closer to this. Again, 10 too many, but not what you would think if you were just looking at the news today. Now, in 2017, and why am I pointing this out? Because I think oftentimes we deal with things in an inappropriate, I know we deal with things in an inappropriate way in the United States, in this culture. It's a sick culture, which is why you have all these homicides and killings in the first place. Okay, it's a godless society. Okay, but because if you have a standard of morality and if you have true education, you're not going around killing people for no reason. Okay, but nevertheless, I just want to point this out just to show you how America operates. In 2017, there were how many homicides in Chicago? Okay, Now it dropped from 2016. There were 650 homicides, many of these young people. Right? Why am I pointing this out? Because there was no national outcry for something that has been going on year after year after year. There's no national outcry. I'm going to send in the National Guard. When the factors that deal with this are the economic situation, the educational situation, the familiar structure in the Black family has been destroyed. Fathers are absent. You cannot tell me that with fathers in the homes, in a sound home, a home in which morality and values is being pushed, that you're going to be raising up a bunch of murderers and gangsters. That's not going to happen. Granted, you might have some that will go astray, but not to this extent. Not to this extent. Going back to the school shootings, there are various factors that we should consider when we think about school shootings. For one, mental health. What is going on in American society that is causing people to kill people in these mass shootings? This is a sick culture. Why? Because it is void of the Word of God. That's why. Because the Bible, this book, brothers and sisters, the law of God is a standard of living. It shows you how to live. It even shows you how to think. So if you are, the Bible says, as a man thinketh, so is he. So is he. David, the sweet psalmist, talked about how he meditates on the Word of God. So meditating on the Word of God and that being pushed, not the hypersexualization, not the extreme violence in American culture being pushed, but morals and values being pushed. You don't have people doing this. But American culture, see, people talk about you need to get rid of all the guns, right? First of all, they say, first of all, the Bible, when Jesus tells you, hey, if you don't have a sword, get one. He tells you that. But you have all these people saying get rid of guns, but you're not addressing what's going on up here. You're not addressing what's going on up here. So before you march, and I understand, young people are fed up. If you think about it, it was young people who went into the promised land. I'm not saying this is like the same thing. I'm talking about it's young people, because young people are the hope for the future. But understand, young people need guidance, and we all need truth and to operate in truth. That's what we need. That's what we need. And unfortunately, those, particularly journalists and the media, are not actually giving us the truth. Right? This is the society void of truth. When you talk about spiritual truths, like just sanctify them through that truth, that word is true. But this all of a sudden is not good anymore. See, you've taken this out of the schools. Right? You've kicked this out. It's become a secular. It was never some righteous country, but you're getting further and further and further away. So when you look around, you can't understand why these things are going on in society. It's because you have turned your back totally on God. It was a point in time where certain things just didn't take place. They just didn't take place. Again, and let me throw this in here in case you're just tuning in. One school shooting is one too many. And it is a tragedy anytime a child loses their lives. So I'm not making light of this, right? I'm not in any shape or fashion, but I'm just showing you how there are some significant problems that, quite frankly, the school is just a microcosm of. Again, mental health, right? A godless society, hypersexual society, extremely violent. When you play video games, where you're killing people, and it's the norm. When you look on TV and it's just blood and gore. When you see this same type of behavior within society, this is a sick society. It's a sick society. So you could get rid, first of all, you can't get rid of all the guns. There's more guns in America than there are people. I'm going to say that again. There are more guns in America than there are people. There are well over 300 million people in this country. Okay? And when you look at things like this, usually these aren't law-abiding citizens. Right? So for those who are on the extreme left and would say, hey, we need to get rid of all the guns, well, you're not going to get rid of homicide because criminals, by definition, don't care about your laws. I'm going to say this again. Criminals, by definition, do not care about your laws. That's what makes them a criminal. That's why they would get the gun in an unlawful way and use it in an unlawful fashion. So if you disarm people, the law-abiding citizen, now you make them defenseless. And let me say this. When people talk about the Second Amendment in this country, the Second Amendment in the Constitution, the Second Amendment is not necessarily for your personal safety per se. Granted, you need to preserve your life. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when you read the Constitution, for example, I heard the former President Obama say that, we're not trying to take away people's rights to have guns. We're not trying to take away people's rights to hunt and to do these different things. That's extreme. Understand. I'm just making it plain. The Second Amendment is not about hunting. The Second Amendment states that your rights to form a militia will not be infringed. In order to have a militia, you need a weapon. Why? Because if you don't have the Second Amendment, you don't have any of the other amendments. Why? Because you have just opened yourself up to have your rights violated by the government. This is why totalitarian dictatorships, these are the first to get rid of gun rights. See, so this is why the Second Amendment was there. Now, for the so-called Negro in America, the most oppressed individuals in America. You said, how they oppressed? What about the indigenous people? Yeah, the indigenous people had it tough. They had it hard. But you understand, when they talk about that Trail of Tears, don't you know that those indigenous people had slaves? See, they owned us too. Not all indigenous. Some of them took us in. You look at the Seminoles in Florida. But some of these so-called civilized tribes owned our people. And when you look historically at gun rights, gun control and laws pertaining to guns, in order to keep slave revolts at bay, men were required in certain parts of the country, white men were required to have rifles at all times, except for when they were like going to church. Why? Because they were afraid of an uprising. You look about who has been restricted from having guns, from what they thought about the Haitian Revolution in this country and how they feared it and how they feared free black militias here, how they feared what would take place, and what could potentially take place overall once they saw the Nat Turner Rebellion. You look at how they treated the Black Panthers and the changes that came in California. See, when it's about us having a gun, then you got somebody saying, hey, we need some gun control. It was illegal for our people at any time to have a weapon. Why? To defend yourself from oppression. So you should consider that if you are a people who have historically been oppressed. You just had a brother got shot in his backyard with a gun. I guess was a cell phone. From my understanding, the last report I saw, they shot at him 20 times. They shot at him 20 times, handcuffed the body, let him lay there for in critical moments. Called, then the ambulance comes, right? Then they get to him, then they handcuff him. Whether or not you have to really consider what has happened to us historically. And for so-called Negroes to say we need to be disarmed is beyond me. That's beyond me. But nevertheless, moving on, well, also we should consider 50.7 million students enrolled in schools in the fall of 2017. Right? On average, and again, one is too many, but on average, annually over the past quarter century, there have been 10 killings in regard to school shootings. Again, one too many. Now, but 100,000 or more went to Washington, D.C. Students around the country walked out. They did different things. Understood. I understand that. But you know what? Something that people are not talking about, that students are also doing, that's getting no coverage whatsoever. Again, we just want to talk about some things we should consider in regard to school shootings. Students around the country are also planning pro-life protests. They're also planning pro-life protests because of the abortion rates and those children that have been aborted. So you look at 50.7 million students were enrolled in the fall of 2017. How many, I ask you, how many children have been aborted since Roe v. Wade? Think about it. How many children do you think? Well, I'll just put it up here. $60 million. 60 million children have been aborted since Roe v. Wade. Now, how many of those children have been among our people? 18 million. 18 million. That's something you should consider. See, that's why I said sometimes we focus on the wrong things. I'm not saying you shouldn't focus on this. I'm not saying that. But if you take the steps, you see this, and then you say, hey, we're going to disarm ourselves, that's not the right move. And what you really should be concerned about is how you come to morally accept this number. How is it that you can, and see, quite frankly, this is just simply people not being accountable for their actions. I'm not talking about instances of rape and incest, and quite frankly, that doesn't justify abortion either. As harsh, and again, that's not me making light of rape, or incest, that's a terrible thing. That's a crime. That's a crime. But also, you have to understand that the life that may have been created in that instance, or in that encounter, is innocent. Is innocent. Secondly, that's not the reason why the vast majority of people are getting abortions. Vast majority of the reason why women are getting abortions is because a baby is inconvenient. See, society is set up now where you don't have to be accountable for your actions. At least you don't think you have to be accountable for your actions. Because when it's all said and done, he's going to bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. Peace, brother. Peace, brother. I see you there. But you have to understand that. You know, but they have it now. They got, hey, after morning pill, you don't have to worry about that. You got the abortion clinic, you don't have to worry about that. You got the prophylactic, you don't have to worry about that. You need to worry about the Most High. And do you realize who you're killing? No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. And people say, well, you know, he's not. I'm not in a position to have a baby right now. Listen, When you laid down, you was in a position to have a baby. Now, you might not be social, you might not be economically in a position, you might not be educationally in a position, but nevertheless, it's still murder when you're killing this child. That's what it is. And I just want to look at Roe v. Wade real quickly. This is a book, and I encourage you to get this book. It's called Killing Black Innocence. The program to control African American reproduction from slavery's end to the present day self-inflicted genocide. So it talks about how from the time we set our feet on the shore of America, that they tried to control our reproduction through forced pregnancies, through rape, right? Then, they had this program to where they were giving all these women hysterectomies. They had this program where they're giving all these women long-term birth control. They had a program where you see who gets abortions, and at the rate, we are too high. Peace to you, Ruth 116. You see that consistently. That's a problem. That's a problem. So I just want to look at some things pertaining to how this came about. Okay? How this came about. Now, the first thing, one of the most racist institutions in the United States of America, Supreme Court. They passed Roe v. Wade. Okay? They passed Roe v. Wade. And understand that the woman that was in the Roe, she didn't even afterwards. She basically said that what she did, she realized what she did was wrong. Okay? That's not really talked about though. But nevertheless, first of all, there were some problems with this case in the sense of the interpretation and the verdict, if you will, or the judgment. Number one, the question of when life begins. This was not determined. And what I mean by that is, if you think about it, if you are going to say somebody can have an abortion, the first thing you need to determine, if the question is whether or not a woman can have an abortion, the first thing you need to determine is when life begins. Because if life begins at conception, an abortion is murder. Okay? But listen to what the court said concerning when the question of life begins. Now, this is from Supreme Court Justice Blackmun, who wrote the majority opinion. Now, this is concerning the question of when life begins. He says, we need not solve the difficult question of when life begins. Now, stop right there. That's wrong. That's the first thing you need to solve. He says, when those trained in the respective disciplines of medicine, philosophy, and theology are unable to arrive at any consensus, the judiciary at this point in the development of man's knowledge is not in a position to speculate as to the answer. Now, if that was indeed true, that so-called, what he said, people in the disciplines of medicine, philosophy, and theology could not come to a determination, that means you shouldn't come at a determination either. And if you can't come to the determination of when life begins, you say, hey, you can't do it because it might be that you kill when you have an abortion. Instead, he says we cannot determine this, so therefore that's not even an issue. So they take that right off the table. When in actuality, that's not even true. Embryologists will tell you that life begins at conception. That's not a secret. They know that. That is not a secret, brothers and sisters. That's not some mystery. There's an overall agreement in the areas of biology, scientific writings, in the medical field that life begins at conception. Okay? Just a little side note, we talk about trimesters and when you can get an abortion. They actually made up that framework with this case. Okay? The Supreme Court assumed the role of legislature in the establishment of the trimester framework. Black men claim that it was unnecessary to speculate on when life begins, but does just that with this trimester framework. By establishing a trimester framework, the court assumed the role of the legislature. Again, the court extended its constitutional authority according to Article 6, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution. This arbitrary trimester framework stipulated the following. The state may not regulate abortion for any reason during the first trimester, when the privacy interest of the mother is the strongest. They just made that up. Okay? Then it says, during the second trimester, state regulation could only occur to protect the woman's health. In the third trimester, the state may regulate or prohibit abortion. Okay? And even that changed in many ways later. Another thing, misinterpretation of history. You know, they didn't have, at least in the Western world, they didn't have a CVS where you can go get a pregnancy test. So they knew they were pregnant once there was a quickening there, once there was a movement. Okay? Now, with that, I'm going to just read this on page 74. It says, the Supreme Court's ruling that the unborn are non-persons was largely influenced by its inaccurate historical interpretation of abortion. According to the historical observation of the court, abortion was not a punishable crime from the earliest time of common law until the 19th century. And abortion laws passed during the 19th century were ratified for the health of the mother, not the unborn child. Okay? Well, he says, so they say it is undisputed that at common law, abortion performed before quickening, the first recognizable movement of the fetus in utero, appearing usually from the 16th to the 18th week of pregnancy, was not indictable offense. Was not an indictable offense. Many legal scholars have pointed out that quickening, the moment in which women feels the movements of the child in the womb, was an evidentiary test for the crime of abortion because this was the only method to ensure pregnancy did in fact exist prior to because there was no pregnancy test at the time. This did not mean, as the court implies, that the unborn child was not considered a living being. But you see how they did this. Also, this is huge. 14th Amendment. So there's a right to privacy. Let me tell you something, brothers and sisters. You cannot murder somebody and then say, well, I have the right to do it because it's in the privacy of my own. I killed this man, but I'm in the privacy of my own home. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. But they used the 14th Amendment, which had nothing to do with this type of behavior. So I want to read something. And then when you look at the Dred Scott decision. The Dred Scott decision. The Dred Scott decision where you had, it told you that blacks couldn't be recognized as citizens. It's the same type of thing when you talking about the most vulnerable of us, which is in the womb. Now, I'm going to just read some things in comparison to Dred Scott versus Sanford of 1857 to Roe v. Wade 1973. So first off, they determined in the Dred Scott verdict decision, it says a Negro whose ancestors were imported into this country and sold as slaves were not intended to be included under the word citizens in the Constitution and can therefore claim none of the rights and privileges which the instrument provides for and secures to citizens of the United States. See, I don't know how you could be from that lineage and then talk about, yeah, I don't need a weapon. When historically this country has told you you're not a part of it. But you say, I don't want no gun. When they hanged you on trees by the thousands. They murdered you in the streets. They've enslaved your ancestors, but I don't need any weapon to protect myself. That doesn't make any sense. Now let's see what Roe v. Wade said, because he said blacks were not citizens. Here in Roe v. Wade, it says the word person, as used in the 14th Amendment, does not include the unborn. The unborn have never been recognized in the law as persons in the same sense. They say you in the womb, you're not a person. You black, you're not a citizen. There are similarities here. Dred Scott versus Sanford says, concerning the right to privacy, it says, a slave is the property of the master, and the Constitution has provided for the protection of private property in the law as persons in the whole sense. So now, hey, you are private property. Let's see what Roe v. Wade said. This right to privacy is broad enough to encompass a woman's decision whether or not to terminate her pregnancy. So you got the right to privacy. So I can own this man, abuse this woman as a slave because they're my private property. You can kill somebody in the womb because, hey, that's your privacy. That's what you do in private. That makes no sense. Historical justification for slavery and abortion. Dred Scott versus Sanford, 1857. The Negro might justly and lawfully be reduced to slavery for his benefit. I'm going to read that one again. Dred Scott decision, 1857. Dred Scott versus Sanford. Now, this is a man who was enslaved, but he was in a free state for a time. So he tried to claim freedom because he had resided in a free state. Didn't work. It says the Negro might justly and lawfully be reduced to slavery for his benefit. It's in your best interest to be a slave. Do you know? And I talk about this in this book. And I wrote this book because when I started really understanding about, and that's what I'm talking about, when I really started understanding about abortion and what it's done to our community in particular, and humanity as a whole, I can't tell you how I felt. And so the one thing I could do was raise awareness about the situation. But nevertheless, it says, again, the Negro might justly and lawfully be reduced to slavery for his benefit. Don't you know that even after slavery, right after slavery, it was the common thinking that because our people were not enslaved, that they would basically die, we would basically die off? That was the common thinking initially. Now, how you could survive 246 years of chattel slavery, and all of a sudden, because you're free, you ain't under the white man's whip, that you're going to die is beyond me. Roe v. Wade, because again, justification. There is also the distress for all concerned. I'm going to read this a little slow. There is also the distress for all concerned associated with the unwanted child. And there is the problem of bringing a child into a family unable, psychologically and otherwise, to care for it. Now, it is true that if you bring a child into that type of situation, you might have some problems. For example, when we look at factors in mass shootings, there are some who are saying that fatherlessness is associated with this. Just like fatherlessness is associated with abortion. You're not married, you're not with somebody just here today, gone tomorrow morning. They'll give you some money to get the abortion. They're not committed to you, but you laying down with them. See, at a certain point, you're going to have to be accountable. But nevertheless, they justify the murder of the child because the child might cause some problems in regard to taking care of it. So it's just best to pay that $800 or however much it is now to get an abortion instead of paying $250,000 between 9 and 18 years old. Well, that still does not justify abortion. What did Tupac say? He like a rose that grew out of the concrete. See, you don't know who you killing. You have some of the greatest men and women in humanity that came out of dire circumstances to make great contributions to humanity. So you can't justify that. Now let's go to the scriptures. Now let's go to the scriptures and find out. I just want to start off in Genesis, the 17th chapter, to see what children are, brothers and sisters. Genesis, the 17th chapter. And I want to read in verse 17, 15 and 17. I'm sorry, 17 and 15. So it says, then Abraham fell upon his face and laughed and said in his heart, shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old, and shall Sarah that is 90 years old bear? And Abraham said unto God, oh, that Ishmael might live before thee. So now he had a woman by his concubine, Hagar. He had a child by his concubine, Hagar, Ishmael. And it says, and God says, Sarah thy wife shall be thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac, which means laughter, or he laughs. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. So you never know what's coming. And that was a blessing, brothers and sisters, this child of the covenant. But let's go to Exodus. Because here, the seed that came, he's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And out of Jacob, or Israel, his name was changed to Israel, came these 12 sons, which made it 12 tribes. And now you got a whole nation of people. But let's see what it says here. Exodus, the 23rd chapter. All right, Exodus, the 23rd chapter. I'm going to pick it up in the 20. Let's see. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second, brothers and sisters. One second. Let's go to right, I'm in the wrong chapter. I'm looking up like I'm in the wrong chapter. Okay. Yeah, Exodus 20. I said 23. I think I said 23. I'm in 25. I'm looking at that's not right. I had the number wrong, but I'm a little on the wrong page, but the number right. The chapter's right. Exodus 23 and verse 25. I just want to read this here. These are instructions concerning the promises and conquest of the land, the promised land. So it says the one that Abraham's seed was going to inherit. So it says in verse 25, and ye shall serve the Lord your God, and he shall bless thy bread and thy water, and I will take away from sickness away from the midst of thee. Then he says something. There shall nothing cast their young, nor be barren in thy land. The number of thy days I will fulfill. So he's telling you, like, listen, hey, none of you are going to be barren, right? We read about Abraham, whose wife had been barren for so long. He says, but none of you are going to be barren. None of you are going to be barren. You're going to bring forth children. Let's go to, he also tells you that in Deuteronomy 7. But let's go to Exodus, the 21st chapter. Because people don't understand, because even Blackman said, well, there's no consensus amongst those dealing in religion, so to speak. But let's see here if there's consensus. This is Exodus, at least in the biblically, Exodus 21 and 22. It says, if men strive and hurt a woman with child, so that her fruit depart from her, and yet no mischief follow, he shall be surely punished, according as the woman's husband will lay upon him, and he shall pay as the judge is determined. So now, if there were men striving or fighting each other, and a pregnant woman was in the vicinity, she got injured by one of the men, or she brought forth the child because of the stress or the whatever, and the child, but it says, and no mischief followed, meaning the child didn't die. That man was still fine. But it says something, and if mischief follow, then thou shalt give life for life. Meaning if that baby died, that man was to die. See, so you find out that life does begin, there is a personhood that is respected in the womb. Regardless of what man might say. Let's go to the book of Jeremiah. Because you don't know who you're killing in the womb. Let's see what this mighty prophet had to say. This one they call a weeping prophet who had a very severe message for the children of Israel. It says here, and this is Jeremiah 1 and verse 4. It says, then the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. This is what he tells them. He said, I knew you in the womb. So you don't know who you killing in the womb. You don't have the right to take that life. You don't have the right to take that life. Last place, Psalms 82, especially when you consider what we were to become. This is Psalms 82. See, like I said, if you understand truly the word of God, you understand what you are, and you understand what your fellow man is and what you are and what you both have the potential to be, you don't go around just killing people. You understand that life has sanctity to it. It is sacred. We're made in the image and likeness of God. So you're going to kill him who was made in the image and likeness of God? The Bible says, you talk about, you love me but hate your brother. You love God who you never see but hate your brother who you see every day. And he made in the image and likeness of God? This is Psalms 82. It says, God standeth in the congregation of the mighty. He judgeth among the gods. Who are these guys? These false gods? No. Let's keep reading. In verse 6, I'm going to skip down to verse 6. Well, I'm going to keep reading because he tells you about them. He said, how long will you judge unjustly and set the persons of the wicked? He's talking about mankind and what we've become. He tells you in Genesis 6, it repented me that I had made this man. I was destroy him from the face of the earth. Why? Because his thoughts were only evil continually. He was wicked. It says, defend, then it says something. Defend the poor and fatherless. This is what we should be doing as a species. Y'all don't care, but I'm going to keep talking about it. I'm going to keep talking about it. It says, defend the poor and fatherless. That's what you're supposed to be doing. You're not supposed to be killing 60 million. How the people of God gonna kill 18 million? And this is a low estimate. How you gonna kill 18 million babies? How you justify that? You can't do it. You're supposed to defend the poor and the fatherless. Do justice to the afflicted and needy. Deliver the poor and needy. Rid them out of the hand of the wicked. Then it says something. They know not now, but they understand. They walk on in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are out of course. Man has gone totally astray. When you got this going on, that's just in America. We got this going on. You got all these abortions, perpetuation of same-sex marriage, homosexuality. You have violence, oppression of the poor. It says, I have said, ye are gods, and all of you are the children of the Most High. So how do you justify killing someone that was made in the image and likeness of God? You can't do it. He says, I have said ye are gods, and all of you are the children of the Most High. Then he says, but ye shall fall like men and die like one of the princes. So, brothers and sisters, that's just something that we should consider when we're looking at this thing. Because we're talking about, and again, one is too many. I want to reiterate that. One is too many. But you're talking about 60 million. And there's not a lot of attention being drawn to this. Like I said, you got some students that say we're gonna lead a nationwide protest and talk in regard to abortion, you know, and acknowledge all these children that have been aborted since Roe v. Wade. You're not seeing this on the news. How do you not say this is happening in silence and acceptance? You have some that are saying something, for the most part, you're not hearing nothing, and they dying every day. They dying every day. Body parts being sold for profit. Body parts being put in vaccines. Body parts being thrown away like trash, like you throw away a paper cup or a styrofoam plate. This is a crime, brothers and sisters. So before you think about this crime, I'm not saying don't think about this. I'm not saying don't address this. But ultimately, brothers and sisters, you don't think there won't be judgment for this. Like the children of Israel, they were sacrificing their children to Molech, passing them through the fire. Don't think, brothers and sisters, you don't have to pay. Because he sees all our works, brothers and sisters. And with that, I want to remind you that we're at the House of Faith. Meet every Sabbath, which is Saturday, at 5925 West 25th Avenue, Gary, Indiana, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. Again, we were blessed to have a permanent home. We're thankful to the Most High for that, for blessing us. We also we'll be having our Passover service at 7:15 on that Friday evening. In addition to that, I want to remind everyone that you can make donations to our ministry by simply going to israelteach.org, www.israelteach.org, and leave a donation. Leave a donation, because it is all going to the ministry. It's not going in our pockets. It's all going to the work of the ministry. Okay, and for those who have been making donations, we are truly thankful to you. We are truly thankful, because it is through those donations that we can do the work that needs to be done. And with that, brothers and sisters, it's always my prayer that you were edified.